Hey, good morning, Pete, North Las Vegas. We are back on the 71 Camaro OER steering wheel install. This is the four-spoke sport model. And I did a video on this already, and we talked about why this thing is upside down. And in that video, we talked about how your horn contact receptacle is supposed to be 180 out up here. And I'm not going to go into as much detail as I did in that first video, but what it ended up being was the rag joint. Everything on the entire steering column from this side of the rag joint that indexes on that flat spot right there with the gearbox. So this part of the rag joint can only go on one way. These are different size posts. These made up with the intermediate shaft, which then mates up with the actual steering column. These posts are different size, and on the intermediate shaft flange, the holes are sized to the post. So you can't swap this around on the intermediate shaft. This side of the rag joint can only go on one way. So what happened was the one that's installed, this one's correct, but the ones installed, they swapped the large post with the smaller post, and they got that 180 out. And then, like I was saying, everything on the steering column is indexed. So once this happens, there's no way to re-index anything, and you end up with an upside down steering wheel. Okay, so now we're going to do the horn, and I ran into a situation on the horn also. Okay, so this car originally came with a standard column. It did not have the tilt feature, and I got this steering column from, I think it was called Steering Wheels Galore or Galore Steering Wheels. They might still be in business, I don't know. But I seem to remember this column was not for 71. It was either for 70 or 72. I don't remember which one. It's been so long now. But anyway, that shouldn't matter. That model year range should all be the same. But I just thought I would mention that because the type of horn contactor it uses is the slotted notch locking type. And then there's another type where the ferrule that mounts these contactors has a tab on the side of it, and that's what locks into that slot. So depending on what kind of column you have, what kind of steering wheel, it may either use the non-tabbed with just a snapping ring, or you may have the tab style. Now this is the kit. This is what came with the steering wheel kit. When I ordered the steering wheel kit from Classic Industries, nowhere did they ask me if I had a tilt or standard. They just said, here's our steering wheel, and here's our complete kit that comes with all the mounting stuff and the horn contactor. So this is what I got with the steering wheel kit. I just recently ordered these two, and I'm getting ready to show you something here, and I don't know which one's going to be right, but we're going to figure it out. But I'm mainly doing this video just to show you what you might be up against when you hook up your horn assembly. So let me show you the three styles that I have here. Okay, so here's the three horn contactor kits. The short one here is the one I got with the steering wheel kit. And these two here I just received. And you can see that the contactors, you have a short, medium, and long. And as I was saying earlier in the video, these are the snap-in type collars, which are the wrong collars for my steering column. And you can see that this one has that locking tab that's needed for the slot on my steering column. So we're going to try to figure out which one of these fits the best and which one properly actuates the diaphragm and the cup. Now I saw an I Did It steering column video to where it looks like they just give you the longest version, and they have a video where they show cutting this down and filing it and smoothing it out to get the correct fitment up here on your column. And they don't really give you a number. It's kind of a trial and error thing. So I'm hoping between these three contactors and using the correct color that we should be able to get this figured out. Okay, so I forgot to mention on the packaging, they all have the correct model year range, 69 to 02. and that's the longest one with the beefiest spring. And then we have this one here, looks like 67 to 72, and that's the medium size. And these two springs here are really wimpy. I mean, they don't hardly have any tension, where this spring here is pretty beefy. Like I said, we'll get this figured out. Okay, so before we get started on which size contactor I need, the one on the left is the one that fits my column. It has a tab hanging on the side there. And the one on the right is for the other style horn contactor receptacle. So the one on the right does not work on my steering column. The one on the left is the bushing that I'll be using. And like I said, we just got to figure out what length I need on the actual contactor. Okay, so one more thing I noticed before we start to assemble. If you look at where that tab is, it's not perfectly centered on the bushing. It's a little bit more towards the right than it is to the left. And you can also see that there's a chamfered edge on the right side, and it's more of a square cut on the left side. And you can see the little notches wherever you're going to put a screwdriver or tool, 180 out. My guess is that the straight cut edge on my left is what butts up against the spring. And then, yeah, I think that's the way it goes. Anyway, we're getting ready to find out. Okay, so the long pin is definitely too long. Now, the long pin came with the kit that came with the correct collar that I need. The shorter pins came with the snap-in style, which I cannot use on the steering column. So ordering the kit with the large pin and the correct collar with the tab on it, that solved the locking tab issue. Okay, so it looks like the shortest one is the best fit. After I get this thing installed, just push it in with my hands. It looks like it's lining up in the right spot to where it's not going to touch the diaphragm spring until I push on the horn. So I think the short one is the one that we want. Okay, so the short one on the outside dimensions measures 5/8 of an inch long. And like I said, this is the correct collar that we need to use. It has the tab on it. Now, the problem I had was when I put this into the spring receptacle, slot, hole, whatever you want to call it, what was happening was this head was getting jammed up on the back of the receptacle. And once I had enough room to get the collar in and the spring compressed without binding the spring. But in order to get this collar on, I had to push it in far enough, and it was getting hung up on the very back of the hole. So I looked in there. There's no burrs, there's no scarring, there's no anything. It's just that this is plastic, and it just gets dimensionally tighter as you get more towards the contactor plate. So what I had to do to fix this problem was get it chucked up and take a file and just keep buzzing it down until it didn't get hung up in the back of the spring pocket. So I'll show you the measurements and where I ended up to where it quit hanging up. And I may take a couple more thou off it just to make sure it doesn't get hung up, in case this plastic housing changes dimension again and gets tighter for some reason. So I'll show you the measurements between all three and where I ended up with this one to get it to work right. Okay, so this is the long one, which I won't be able to use because of the length anyway, but you can see the flanged end comes in at 0.2534, something like that. So it's over a 1/4 inch. So this is the in-between size, the middle size, and it's coming in at 0.240 or 0.245. So 5/1000ths under a 1/4 inch. And this one was getting hung up a little bit, but not as bad as the large one. So this one was kind of sticky, but it was still kind of getting hung up, and I just didn't like the way it felt. Okay, so this is the short one and seems to be the right size for the diaphragm spring contactor. And this is the one I put in a drill bit. It disappeared. But this is the one I put in the drill bit, and we got it down to 0.240. And this goes all the way in and out of the hole nice and smoothly. It doesn't get hung up. I'm thinking about maybe taking a few thou off, but we'll get the spring and collar, and we'll get everything in there, and I'll just kind of depress it back and forth and see if it's going to get hung up at all. But I think we're there. Okay, so spring first, then your contactor with the large diameter fat end goes next. And then we're going to snap the collar in over the top of that. Okay, so once again, this is the orientation. It's going to go like that on top of the spring, and that locking tab's going to lock into the groove. All right, I don't have enough hands to show you while I'm actually doing it, but we'll get this thing installed in place and then try to make a final determination as if this is the right length. Okay, well, it's in there. If you look in the slot there, I don't see the pin on the collar, so it's rotated. Hopefully it went as far as it's supposed to. I don't know, man. It seems wonky to me, but it seems like that collar should snap in a little better. But we'll put the diaphragm on and do a measurement and see what happens. Okay, so the pin is close. I'd say probably less than 1/8 of an inch. So it's not touching the diaphragm, which is what we want. We don't want that to make contact until I push on the horn. So I think we're okay, as far as I can tell. We're close, but it's not touching. Okay, so going from ground to the diaphragm, I have an open, which is what I want right now, because if I was showing continuity, we would have a horn that's stuck on. Okay, when I push on the diaphragm, you'll see that we get a good connection on that contactor. So I think everything's spaced right, and I think we got a good functioning horn. I'm going to try to do this and record at the same time. So I'm going to put my phone on my meter down where you can see it, and then I'll push on the diaphragm. Okay, so right now I have my meter leads. One's on the diaphragm and one's on ground. So I'm going to push on the diaphragm and we should see a connection. All right. I couldn't push hard enough with one finger, but you can see the horn is working. Okay, so I don't know how snug these are supposed to be, but when I snugged them all the way to where the back of the red insulator spacer was up against the steering wheel, I couldn't hardly move this thing at all. I couldn't get any clicking, and it just didn't feel good. So I backed them off a turn, and now I can get them to click. What I may end up doing is getting some nylon washers and maybe stack a nylon washer behind the other side of the red insulator, and and kind of move this cup back out a little bit, and then see if I can snug it down that way, but still have enough movement to actuate the diaphragm. But I mean, it's working right now. It's just really hard to push. So I may have to do a little bit more tuning on it. But anyway, I'm not going to put this on, but that's how it's going to look. All right, horn assembly, big fun. 71 Camaro, Pete, North Las Vegas, over and out.